Today's devotional comes from Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 7, where Paul writes to the church, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." Philippians is known as the epistle of joy because Paul comes back to joy again and again. It's such a significant part of his journey with Christ, and not because he had an easy life. We know Paul suffered, he was beaten, he was arrested, he was the recipient of being stoned, he was in jail, he was put in jail. He went through so much, and yet he can say, "Rejoice in the Lord always." Not just when things are going well, not just when your health is perfect and your family's wonderful and everything's great where you work or in the activities you're involved in retirement. It's rejoice in the Lord always. And to do that, that means we need to have our eyes open to what we can give thanks for and celebrate that God is doing in our life and what's around us. I also think it's an important connection, and think of the fruit of the Spirit, where Paul in Galatians says that joy is a fruit of the Spirit, and so is gentleness. And here in Philippians he says, let your gentleness be known to everyone. Don't be argumentative, don't be mean, don't be nasty, don't be harsh. That's not how Christians should be known or identified. It's by our gentleness. And again, I'm afraid in our culture in the last number of years that a lot of people who are not believers, if you said, give me a word or two that describes what Christians are like, I'm afraid that joy and gentleness would not be two words that a lot of people outside of the church would use to describe us. And that is to our detriment. And finally, Paul also says, as Jesus does in Matthew chapter 6, in a passage we looked at previously, do not worry. As Christians, we're not to worry, but in everything, we turn to God in prayer with thanksgiving. Again, focusing on gratitude. And psychiatrists and psychologists, we know now that focusing on gratitude is an important part of good mental health. And Paul is telling us that 2,000 years ago almost. In everything, don't worry, but in prayer with thanksgiving, we share our requests with God. And what's the result of all this? Of rejoicing, of being gentle, of not worrying and praying. It's that the peace of God will stand sentry watch, will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus. I hope that you will rejoice in the Lord always throughout this day.